The studio lights blazed down on the set of The Progressive Hour, a primetime talk show known for its sharp political commentary and unapologetically left-leaning stance. The host, Michael Cummings, a man who prided himself on his ability to dismantle conservative viewpoints with wit and relentless questioning, was preparing for what he assumed would be just another easy interview. Tonight's guest, however, was no ordinary guest. It was none other than Sylvester Stallone. The Hollywood legend had made a name for himself not only as a box office juggernaut, but also as a man who spoke his mind without worrying about political correctness. As the show's theme music faded, Michael Cummings leaned forward, smiling smugly. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we have a real treat. The one and only Sylvester Stallone is here. Now, Sylvester, you've had an incredible career. Rocky, Rambo, and so many other great roles. But I have to ask, with Hollywood becoming more socially conscious, do you ever feel out of place? Stallone chuckled, adjusting the microphone clipped to his jacket. Well, Mike, I don't really think about it that way. I do my thing. I make movies people enjoy. If that's out of place, then maybe the place needs adjusting. Cummings smirked, sensing an opportunity. Interesting, but let's be real. Your movies, especially Rambo, glorify violence, nationalism, and a sort of outdated macho bravado. Do you ever worry that your films promote the wrong kind of message in today's more progressive world? Stallone leaned back, his trademark smirk forming. Mike, let me ask you something. Have you ever seen a Rambo movie and thought, I'm gonna go fight a war by myself? Cummings laughed awkwardly. Well, no, but... Exactly, Stallone cut in. It's entertainment. It's about telling a story, making people feel something. If someone watches Rocky and feels inspired to work harder, that's great. If someone watches Rambo and just enjoys the action, that's fine too. But if you're sitting here thinking people take these movies as a guide to life, maybe the problem isn't the movie. Maybe it's how people think. The audience chuckled, some even applauding. Cummings, clearly thrown off balance, quickly shifted gears. All right, but Hollywood has been pushing for more diversity and inclusivity. Don't you think your old-school tough guy persona is becoming, well, outdated? Stallone raised an eyebrow. Outdated? Mike, let me tell you something. People love Rocky because he's the underdog. People love Rambo because he fights against the odds. That's not outdated, that's human nature. You want inclusivity? My movies include everybody, because everybody loves a good underdog story. Cummings forced a smile, realizing he wasn't winning this exchange. All right, I see what you're saying, but let's talk politics. You've been seen at events with people on the right. Do you identify as conservative? Stallone grinned. Mike, I identify as a guy who likes common sense. I don't care if an idea comes from the left, right, or Mars. If it makes sense, I'll support it. But you guys in the media, you love to put people in boxes. You hear someone say they believe in working hard and personal responsibility, and suddenly they're a conservative. You hear someone say they love their country, and now they're problematic. What happened to just being a regular person with opinions? The audience erupted into applause. Cummings, clearly flustered, tried to recover. Okay, but in today's climate, don't you think actors have a responsibility to speak out against injustice? Stallone nodded. Sure, but that depends on what you call injustice. Some folks think injustice is someone disagreeing with them on Twitter. I think injustice is a soldier coming home and struggling to pay rent. I think injustice is a kid growing up without a father because the system failed his family. If you want to fix those things first. Not whether someone hurt your feelings on social media. The audience roared with applause, and even some of the show's production crew were seen nodding in agreement. Cummings sighed, rubbing his forehead. All right, Sylvester, I have to admit I didn't expect this conversation to go this way. Stallone grinned. Yeah, Mike, that's what happens when you actually have a conversation instead of just trying to prove a point. The segment ended, and as the show cut to commercial, Cummings looked across at Stallone, shaking his head. You know, I don't lose debates often. Stallone patted him on the shoulder. That's because you don't usually have guests who punch back. The clip went viral the next day. Millions watched as Sylvester Stallone, in his signature style, shut down the usual Hollywood talking points with humor, wisdom, and a whole lot of common sense. As soon as the interview aired, the internet exploded. Clips of Stallone's responses flooded social media, with captions like, "Sly demolishes woke TV host," and "Stallone proves common sense isn't dead." Some called it the most entertaining TV moment of the year. Others, particularly those in the media, scrambled to spin the narrative. Michael Cummings, embarrassed by how the interview played out, tried to regain control. The morning after, he took to Twitter, writing, "Last night's interview with Sylvester Stallone was certainly unexpected. While we may not agree on everything, I appreciate the conversation. That said, promoting outdated ideals isn't something we should celebrate." The response was immediate. Thousands of replies mocked him, with users posting Stallone, memes and gifs of Rocky raising his fists in victory. Some even wrote, "You got KO'd in round 1, Mike." Imagine losing an argument to Rambo on live TV. Cummings is crying in the shower right now. But while the internet was having a field day, Hollywood elites weren't as amused. Talk show hosts and media outlets began running damage control, trying to paint Stallone's words as problematic or misguided. One morning show, panel debated whether Stallone was out of touch with the modern world. "He's an icon, sure," one commentator said, "but times change. The whole tough guy mentality doesn't work anymore." Another panelist added, "People aren't looking for rugged individualism, they're looking for community and inclusivity. Stallone is clinging to an era that's disappearing." But the more they tried to frame the narrative, the more the public pushed back. Fans rallied around Stallone, praising him for standing his ground. Major conservative voices, as well as independent commentators, dissected the interview in detail, celebrating his words as a breath of fresh air in a politically charged industry. Meanwhile, Stallone himself stayed quiet. He had no interest in Twitter debates or media squabbles. Instead, he carried on with his life, working on his upcoming projects. That was until a few days later, when a reporter from a major entertainment network cornered him outside his gym. "Mr. Stallone, what do you think about the backlash from your Progressive Hour interview?" Stallone, wiping sweat from his face, smirked. "Backlash? You mean people talking about it non-stop? Sounds more like free publicity." "But many in Hollywood say your views are outdated. Do you feel like your message is being misunderstood?" Stallone took a deep breath. "Look, I'm not out here trying to preach. I just said what I believe. People can take it or leave it. If being a strong person, believing in hard work, and loving your country is outdated, then I guess I'm a dinosaur. But let me tell you something. Dinosaurs were pretty tough, and they ruled the world for a long time." The reporter hesitated, realizing she wasn't going to get the reaction she wanted. "So, you don't regret anything you said?" Stallone chuckled. "Regret? Nah, I don't live my life apologizing for common sense." That clip went viral too, and within hours, the darn Stallone effect was trending. Fans flooded social media with messages of support, posting quotes from the interview, and even editing videos of Stallone dodging media attacks like he was in a boxing match. Major outlets tried to push a hit piece, claiming that Stallone's views were dangerously outdated. But something was different this time. The public wasn't buying it. Even people who didn't always agree with Stallone defended him, saying he had every right to his opinion. One well-known commentator put it best. The media thought they could cancel Rocky. Turns out, he's still standing. Over the next few weeks, Stallone continued receiving an outpouring of support. His social media following skyrocketed. His films saw a surge in streaming numbers, and his public appearances were met with standing ovations. Even younger fans who weren't around during the height of Rocky and Rambo started seeing him as a symbol of resilience in a time when the world needed it most. One young fan tweeted, "I wasn't alive when Rocky came out, but after watching that interview, I get why my dad loves Stallone. The guy's a legend. Eventually, even Michael Cummings had to acknowledge the obvious. He addressed the situation on his show a few weeks later. "Well, folks, I think it's safe to say I underestimated Sylvester Stallone," he admitted, forcing a smile. "People have been calling me out for losing that debate. And look, I'll be the first to admit, when you get in the ring with Rocky Balboa, you better be ready to take a few hits." The audience chuckled, but it was clear Cummings had learned his lesson. As for Stallone, he continued doing what he always did, making movies, inspiring fans, and staying true to himself. And in a world full of noise, his message rang clear. Strength, resilience, and common sense never go out of style. As weeks turned into months, the buzz surrounding Stallone's viral interview never fully died down. Every so often, clips of the exchange resurfaced on social media, reigniting discussions about Hollywood, common sense, and whether Stallone had single-handedly exposed the media's hypocrisy. Meanwhile, Michael Cummings, still licking his wounds from the unexpected public reaction, attempted to reinvent his image. He tried booking more controversial guests, hoping to recreate the viral moment on his own terms. But nothing quite worked. Audiences saw through his tactics. The magic of that Stallone interview wasn't just in the controversy, it was in the authenticity. And authenticity was something Cummings simply couldn't manufacture. One day, a producer from the Progressive Hour called Stallone's team with an unexpected request. "Michael would love to have Mr. Stallone back on the show for a follow-up interview," the producer said, carefully choosing her words. "We think it could be a great opportunity to clarify certain things." When Stallone's assistant relayed the message, he just laughed. "Clarify? Nah, I think I was pretty clear." The producer tried again. "Look, the last interview was huge. This could be a chance to do what?" Stallone interrupted. "I already said what I believe. I'm not going to go back just so some guy can try to twist my words again. Tell Cummings if he wants to chat, he can catch me at the gym." The producer sighed. "So that's a no?" "That's a no," Stallone confirmed. "A hard no." And just like that, the door was shut. But Hollywood wasn't done trying to push back. A few months later, an entertainment magazine published a so-called exposé on Stallone's career, attempting to paint him as an actor who had refused to evolve with the times. The article criticized his films for promoting toxic masculinity, questioned his refusal to engage in modern political activism, and even suggested that his continued success was a relic of a bygone era. The response from fans was swift and brutal. One Twitter user wrote, "Funny how Hollywood is dying, but the guys they say are outdated keep winning." Another added, "If being strong, independent, and hardworking is toxic masculinity, then I hope it never goes away." Despite all the noise, Stallone stayed quiet. He didn't need to respond. He had seen it all before. Hollywood loved to build people up, tear them down, and then pretend they were doing some kind of noble work. But Stallone wasn't playing their game. Then, one night, he made a rare public appearance at an award show. When he walked onto the stage to present an award, the audience erupted in applause, longer and louder than usual. Even in an industry that had tried to label him outdated, the respect for him was undeniable. Taking the mic, he smirked and said, "I wasn't sure if I was still allowed at these things." The crowd laughed, many rising to their feet. Then, looking around, he said something unexpected. "You know, I've been hearing a lot lately about how guys like me are past our time. How movies with strong heroes, personal responsibility, and overcoming the odds are somehow problematic. Well, let me tell you something. As long as people have struggles, as long as people have dreams, and as long as people love a good underdog story, our time ain't up." The room exploded in applause. Even some of the Hollywood elites who had tried to discredit him couldn't help but stand and clap, because deep down, they knew he was right. Stallone wasn't just an actor. He wasn't just a Hollywood star. He was a symbol of perseverance, grit, and the kind of strength that transcends politics and social trends. As he left the stage that night, He knew one thing for certain. No matter how much the media tried to spin things, no matter how hard Hollywood tried to change the narrative, some things never go out of style, and Sylvester Stallone was one of them. In the weeks that followed his speech at the award show, Stallone's words continued to echo throughout Hollywood and beyond. The media tried their best to brush it off, but the overwhelming public reaction made it impossible to ignore. Fans, fellow actors, and even some journalists admitted that, whether they agreed with him or not, Stallone had struck a nerve. Interviews on major networks dissected his comments. Some pundits tried to dismiss him as an aging action star clinging to the past, while others acknowledged that he had a point. One respected film critic wrote in an op-ed, "Hollywood has spent the last decade trying to reinvent itself, often at the expense of the very storytelling that made it great." Sylvester Stallone's comments serve as a reminder that timeless values, resilience, determination, and the fight against the odds will always resonate. If anything is outdated, it's the industry's obsession with lecturing audiences instead of entertaining them. That article went viral, further solidifying what Stallone already knew. People weren't as divided as Hollywood wanted them to be. They still loved a good story. They still believed in strength and perseverance. And they still respected someone who stood his ground no matter the pressure. Meanwhile, Michael Cummings and the Progressive Hour were in damage control mode. Ratings had taken a hit since the Stallone interview, and despite their attempts to create new viral moments, none had reached the same level of cultural impact. Cummings himself tried to reframe the situation, going on another show to say, "Look, I respect Sylvester Stallone, he's an icon, but I think his comments represent a resistance to change. The world is evolving, and we should embrace that." The host nodded. But isn't it possible that Stallone's argument is that not all change is good? Cummings hesitated. "Well, I mean, sure, but..." The clip of his awkward response spread online, with users once again roasting him in the comments. Cummings is still trying to recover from that Stallone KO. Dude took an L and won't let it go. Rocky knocked him down, and he never got back up. While all this was happening, Stallone continued doing what he did best, working. He was in the middle of producing a new film, a gritty action drama about a washed-up boxer mentoring a troubled young fighter. The film, titled Heart of the Fighter, wasn't about politics. It wasn't about pushing an agenda. It was just a story about strength, redemption, and never backing down. When the trailer dropped, the reaction was immediate. Fans were thrilled to see Stallone back in his element. The comments flooded in. "This is what we've been missing. Finally, a movie that's just about a great story and not a lecture." Rocky might be done, but Stallone's still got plenty of fight left. Even critics who had been skeptical of Stallone couldn't deny the buzz surrounding the project. It was shaping up to be one of the biggest films of the year, proving once again that audiences craved the kind of storytelling Stallone had always championed. A week before the film's release, Stallone did a rare sit-down interview with a journalist who had supported him throughout the controversy. "So, after everything that happened, the viral interview, the media reaction, the fans rallying behind you, how do you feel about it all?" the interviewer asked. Stallone smirked. "I feel like I went a few rounds with Apollo Creed and came out on top." The interviewer laughed. "Seriously, though, do you think Hollywood has learned anything from this?" Stallone leaned back in his chair, thinking for a moment. "Look, I don't expect Hollywood to change overnight, but I do think they're realizing something. People don't want to be told what to think. They don't want to be lectured. They just want to enjoy a good story. And if Hollywood doesn't give them that, they'll go somewhere else." The interviewer nodded. "So, what's next for you?" Stallone grinned. "I'm gonna keep doing what I do, making movies, telling stories, and if that bothers some folks, well, they can take it up with Rocky." The interview went viral once again, further cementing Stallone's place as one of the last true Hollywood icons. And when Heart of the Fighter finally hit theaters, it shattered expectations, dominating the box office and proving once and for all that Stallone was far from outdated. In the end, the message was clear. No matter how much Hollywood tried to change the narrative. Some things never go out of style. And Sylvester Stallone?